In this video, we're going to talk about how to turn a relatively small retirement account, say around $50,000, into a $1 million account in just a few years. And we're going to do that through the power of short-term rentals.
I'm a big fan of money. I like it. I use it. I have a little. I keep it in a jar on top of my refrigerator. I'd like to put more in that jar. That's where you come in.
Hey, I'm Kirby Atwell from Living Off Rentals, and a couple weeks ago I created this video on whether it's legal to invest in short-term rentals in a retirement account, like a self-directed 401k or IRA. And spoiler alert, it is legal, and in that video I talk about how you can do it. But what I don't think I expressed clearly in that video is why it's so important that you can invest in short-term rentals using your retirement account, and how impactful this can be when you're buying short-term rentals in a tax-sheltered account, and how you could do it on a relatively small scale. You're not buying a massive amount of properties, and grow a very small retirement account to start with, which a lot of people have, a small nest egg sitting there that they could tap into. How you could grow a small nest egg into a $1 million account through the power of short-term rentals in a relatively small amount of time. So I'm going to go through that in this video. We're going to dive into the numbers. I've got a spreadsheet here that kind of walks you through how that's possible. I'm going to show you an example Airbnb listing that I just purchased recently, and how if you buy properties like that in your IRA, what it could do to your retirement savings and wealth generation. So diving right in here, there's really two things that I want to cover on this video. Number one is the Airbnb listing itself, the property itself, because I think once we get to the spreadsheet, people are going to say, well, those type of numbers don't exist. And I want to show you that this is an actual Airbnb. I just purchased this. We're in one of the hottest markets, if not the hottest market, real estate market that's ever existed. I bought this property turnkey off the MLS. I bought it day one, and I paid just over asking price for it. So it was a competitive market, but I bought it turnkey. It needed almost nothing. I did a few small tweaks and then just moved in the furniture. And I bought it for $106,000. And it's in Michigan City, Indiana, which is in the Midwest, a very affordable area. And then I bought it in an affordable neighborhood. But it's also very close to Lake Michigan. It's close to a casino. It's close to an outlet mall. It's close to wineries. There's a lot of draws for people to come visit this area, and it does really well as an Airbnb, but it's extremely affordable. So this is the property here. It's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, just pretty standard property here. I'll show some of the pictures here real quick. It's nothing like super fancy, but it's nice. It's really nice if you're gonna go on vacation with your family and want a place to stay in the town where it's listed, and be close to the lake and close to other attractions. And you can see we've got, so far, just since we listed it at the beginning of March or at the end of February, we've got 9 reviews from people who have stayed there that were all 5 stars. So people are happy with the property. And the numbers on this property, so in the winter months, it's going to produce around $2,000 per month, which isn't super high, but it's definitely higher than the $1,000 that you would get as a long-term rental in the same area. But in the summer, it's going to produce about $5,000 per month of gross income. So obviously we have expenses in there, but on average, it's substantially higher income than you could ever possibly get from a similar $100,000 property somewhere else. So I just want to show you the particular property I'm going to use in the scenario that we go through now in the spreadsheet, so you can see if you buy this type of property, over and over again in a relatively short period of time, you can turn a $50,000 IRA into a $1 million IRA, and I'll show you how that's possible. All right, so here's the very rough spreadsheet that I just created just to demonstrate what's possible with short-term rentals in your IRA. So part of the reason why, just up front, to explain why I think this is super powerful, is that the IRS currently restricts you, I believe it's $6,000 of contribution to your IRA every year. So If you own your own business and you don't have a 401k set up, obviously if you have a 401k through work, then I think it's $19,000 per year that you can contribute to that. So you can start to really build up your retirement funds much quicker. But if you don't, if you just have the IRA, then $6,000 a year isn't that much money. It's going to take a while to accumulate. So if you've saved it for the last 10 years or so, or 8 years or whatever it is, to get to this point of $50,000, hopefully it's, you've had some interest growth and that sort of thing too. But if you saved it for a few years and you now have a little bit of a nest egg at $50,000, I wanted to show you how you can very quickly turn that $50,000 into $1 million investment. Because if you just invest in mutual funds, there's this rule of around 7 years with compounding interest, you're going to double your money every 7 years. So if you've got $50,000, you'd have to wait 7 years to double your money. In this scenario, I'm going to show you how to turn $50,000 into $1 million, and it's actually probably $1 million plus, quite a bit over that, but $1 million of value in the IRA just by buying one property every 6 months. So let me just walk through this scenario here. So if you look at on the column A here, we've got the property numbers. So we've got 15 properties that we're going to purchase. So in this scenario, we're starting with the first property purchase on the first of the year, 1/1/2022. So this, if you just started at the beginning of next year, and you bought $100,000 property. So I just showed you the one that we call Potawatomi Place. It's one that we bought for just over $100,000. It's going to be impossible to find properties that are exactly aligned to these numbers, but these are the types of properties. Some will be a little bit higher, some will be a little bit lower. But if you can get even close to this, you're going to be looking pretty good at the end of 7 years. So a lot of times you can get you can leverage 75%. So in an IRA, you have to get what's called non-recourse loans. But if you set up an LLC that's owned by the IRA, which is perfectly legal, then your LLC can take on a loan of 75% leverage. So that's what I just did with that Potawatomi Place Airbnb that I just showed you, is an LLC that I own, purchased that property, and it got 75% loan to value. So they appraised the property and the bank gave me 75%. So I had to put down 25% as a down payment. So if you've got $50,000 in your IRA, you can put down half that, and on average, like I said, on average, that property is going to make about $2,000 in the winter months, about $5,000 in the summer months, and then in the spring and fall, it's going to be somewhere in between there. So cash flow wise, $1,500 a month is what I'm counting after as the net cash flow. That's after I pay my mortgage payment, my insurance, my utilities, because you got to pay utilities if you own a short-term rental, unlike a long-term. You got to pay for snow removal and cutting the grass, depending on where you live. And so after all my expenses, I'm saying on average, it's going to be about $1,500 a month of cash flow coming in on that property. And so you can see how many months of cash flow when I purchased that property, 0, obviously. And then the remaining balance will be $25,000 in my IRA after I buy that first property. Now, let's say I wait 6 months, get that one up and running so that, I can easily do this with a full-time job over a 6-month period, get one up and running, and be ready to purchase the next one. So I go out and find another turnkey property. So this isn't counting any equity in the property. This is just what you can accumulate by buying one property every 6 months that cash flows like this. So you buy another $100,000 property, put 25 grand down, it cash flows $1,500 a month. Now you've already accumulated 6 months of cash flow on that first one. So you've got $9,000 extra in your account. And so when you buy that property, you're going to have $9,000 left over in your IRA. That's the cash flow you've made because you just spent $50,000 on 2 properties. And then we continue on down the trail. Another 6 months later, after you've stabilized these 2 and they're up and operating, depending on where you're at, you could get a property manager that's 100% outsourced, so you don't have to touch anything, or you could do this yourself. whether you do that or not, get a property manager or not, it's going to probably impact that $1,500, but maybe not. Depending on where you are, you've got to play with the numbers yourself. But I'm just showing what's doable. I manage the properties myself in terms of desktop management. I'm not out cleaning the properties. I'm not doing maintenance or anything like that. But I will do the guest relations myself. I have somebody that helps me with that, and we do that internally. So then you get to number 3. You've accumulated 12 months of cash flow because it's 6 months on each property now. So you've accumulated a total of $18,000 of income from those properties. And then you had the $9,000 previously. So, you buy the next property for $25,000 down again, and you've got $4,000 left, or I'm sorry, you got $2,000 left over. And so you just keep doing that with $25,000. And each time you buy a new property, you're adding, it's compound, it's adding 6 months of that cash flow times how many properties you own to your IRA. So it grows substantially, the cash flow grows substantially, it grows the amount of cash hitting your bank, and so, or hitting your IRA. And so you can work your way down and see, and then once you start to get down to property number 6, technically, you could start buying multiple properties. You could start buying multiple short-term rentals at this point because you have the money sitting in your account. You've got $35,000, $64,000, $102,000. The money is really adding up quickly every 6 months now. And so you work your way all the way down to the bottom of the spreadsheet and just buying $1,500,000 properties and putting $25,000 down on each property. You now own $1.5 million worth of properties. That's 15 times $100,000. You have $375,000 in equity from your down payments, and you've got $135,000 coming in every 6 months. So that's 15 properties times 6 months of that $1,500 a month cash flow. And so you've accumulated now what your balance of cash in your account after you've put down these down payments is $620,000 is sitting in your account. And so this number, the total value, is just your equity plus the $620,000 of cash sitting in your account. So you've got $1 million of value in your IRA. And now, it's actually a lot higher because I know I'm not counting principal pay down. We probably paid off 10% at least of the total mortgage balances. I'm not counting any appreciation whatsoever. I mean, that Potawatomi place, between the time that I put the offer in and got the appraisal, it had appreciated. I bought it for 106 and the appraisal came in at 112. So, appreciation is a real thing. It's going to happen over time. And so that's going to be another substantial value that you're going to get. But this is just from the cash flow. That's really the only value that I'm counting. And in 7 years, so this is January 1st, 2029, you started on January 1st, 2022, you've turned a $50,000 IRA into $1 million plus IRA. So hopefully this video provided a bit of a mindset shift for you on what's possible, what's available to you. Once you realize that you don't have to just invest in mutual funds in your retirement account, that you can get a little creative. And I just happen to believe that short-term rentals are one of the absolute best ways to grow your wealth in general. And if you can do it in a retirement account or a tax-free account, all the better. So if you did like this video, give it a like. I'd appreciate that. And also, I'd love to hear in the comments what your biggest question is around short-term rentals. I'm working on a course right now that's going to be specifically designed to help real estate entrepreneurs who want to invest in short-term rentals or are starting to invest in short-term rentals get over specific roadblocks that are holding them back. So I'd love to hear what's holding you back, or what your biggest question is, or what your biggest problem is with short-term rentals. That would really help me out a lot. You can also join the Living Off Rentals Facebook group, and you can ask any questions that you have in that group. I'd love to see you there, but if not, I'll see you in the next video.